Hi, in this lecture we will learn about context variable and we will see the difference between context in a job level and context in project level. So let's start. First, let's create a new folder. Under Udemy course folder, I name it extra jobs, and under this folder create a new job who name context variable. Now, context variable is a variable which can be set either at compile time or runtime, and it can be changed and allows variable which would be hard-coded to be more dynamic. In Talend we have two different levels of context. The first one is the job level. Now, to add a new context, click on the context tab. If you don't see it, you can go to Windows and show view and look for the context and add it. So to add new context, let's click on the green plus. I name it num1 and its type is integer. In the default value, I write 1, and now I can go and print it. So let's print our first context. So system.out.println, the first num equals, and to concatenate, write plus and add the context. Hi guys, if you like this content and you find it useful, I leave a link in the description for my full course, not too long and very practical for Talend beginners. You don't need any prior knowledge, so I hope to see you there, and until then, have fun. To add a context, we have two ways. The first one is just to write context dot and the name of the variable, but verify that the name is exactly the same because it's key sensitive. And the second way is just to write context dot and click on control space. Let me show you, for example, and all the list of variable pop for us, and now when I write just new, you can see the context I need. So let's run it. And you can see the first num equals 1. The next thing we're gonna do is to change our variable in the runtime. So under this print sentence, let's write context.num1 equals to 15, for example, and then print it again. The new first num equals, and concatenate your variable, and let's run it again. And you can see that the first num equals 1 and the new first one num equals to 15. Now we're gonna add new environment. Talend give us the opportunity to add new environment and to make our context more dynamic. It let us to change all our context by clicking one button. For example, if we have 2 or 3 database environments like dev, test, and prod, we don't need to double all our context, and all we need to do is to change the environment and run the job. So to add new environment, click on the green plus, and here you can click on new. In this lecture, we will do it much more easy. So add new environment and name it big. So after you click OK, you will see another column in the table, and his name is big. In the value, you can write 11, and then you can change the environment. Under the table, you see the default context environment, and you can choose one of the environment. The second way is in the Run tab. On the right side of the tab, you see that you can change the environment. So let's change it for big and run the job, sorry. And you can see that the first num now is 11, and then we change it again in the runtime, so the new first num equals to 15. Okay, now let's add a context on the project level. So go to the repository and right click on context, create context group. The first page in the wizard is the name, purpose, and description that we see previously in our course. So in the name, I name it num2 underscore group, and in purpose I write project level context. So click next, and here you can see the table that we saw in the context tab. So let's add two contexts. The first one it's the second, I name it second and its type is string. The default value is the second name equals with quotation because it's a string. And the second context, it's num2, its type is integer, and the default value is 2. Now let's add a new environment to this context by clicking the green plus on the right side of the table, and I name it higher, and click OK. Now in the value of the num2 at the higher environment, write 12, and you can click finish. To add this context group to our context tab, all we need to do is to drag and drop it. And now, after you add a context group to the context, you can see a common mistake that happens a lot to my customers. And you see that we have 3 columns and 3 environments to our context, because the name of the environment in the context tab and the name of the new environment in the context group was different. So you can see that num1 get the default value in the higher environment because we didn't configure it, and num2 get the default value in the big environment because we didn't configure it. It's happened a lot when customers makes 2 environments, and one of them they name it prod and the other one production, for example. So you must verify that the name of the environment is exactly the same if you want it to be like that and you want to use the same environment for your context. So to fix it, all we need to do is to click on our context group, and in the environment here add a new environment and name it big, like we did previously in the context tab. Now let's put it second in the list and click OK, and in the value here write 12 and finish. Yes, okay. And you can see in the big environment now that we have the value of 11 for num1 and the value of 12 for num2. Now let's use all the context and see the printing. So the active tjava1 and activate and add new tjava to your job. Now you can see that I print the first num again, concatenate with the context name of num1, and the second print sentence I concatenate the 2 of the context that I created in the context group. So context.second concatenate with plus to context num2, and let's run it in the default environment. And you can see that the first num equals to 1 and the second num equals to 2. Let's change the environment to big environment. And you can see that the first num equals to 11 and the second num equals to 12. And for the last time, let's change the environment to higher. And you can see that the first num remains 1 and the second num changed to 12 because we didn't configure the first num in the environment of higher. I see that I have here a mistake. It's first. Okay, so I run it again. We can use all this context wherever we ask for variable in Talend components. For example, in file input delimited, we can use this context for the file path or the header. If we use the context with type int, in the component of tfix flow input, we can use it for the number of rows or in the value or whenever we want. And it's very important to use this context because it makes our job much more readable and much more easy to make changes, and it will help you to be a better programmer in Talend. So in the next lecture we will cover the debug in Talend and we will see how to use it, and until then, bye bye.